Okay, so let's call the Finance Subcommittee to order, and I will read off the checklist. This is the checklist to ensure meetings are compliant with the right to know law during the state of emergency. As chair of the Sanborn Regional School Board's Finance Subcommittee, I find that due to the state of the emergency declared by the governor as a result of COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which is authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the Sanborn Regional School Board's Finance Subcommittee had the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number: 1-646-558-8656. The meeting ID is 944-5164-4800, or by clicking on the following website address: YouTube address www.youtube.com/c/SRSD meeting videos. That's all one word. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for assessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the Sanborn Regional School District at www.sau17.net. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 978-482-7394 or email at helpdesk@sau17.net. Adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during the meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states your presence, please also state whether there's anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Jim, why don't we start with you?
Hey, Jim Baker. I'm in a room in my house and there's no one with me.
Matt?
I'm Matt Angel. I'm at the SAU office and there's no one in my office with me.
Jamie Fitzpatrick. I'm at home in my home office and I am alone. And I'll also note that Pete Broderick will not be able to join us this evening, so we will be proceeding with just Jim and myself. Pete got in touch with us. He was not able to come for good reasons. So why don't we go ahead and get started. I had sent the minutes out. I don't know if you got a chance to look at the minutes. Jim, if you did, could I get a motion on that?
Move to approve.
I would second that. Your vote?
Yes.
And I am also a yes, so unanimously approved. The next item of business is a business administrator comments that we've added to the committee, and Matt will give us kind of a state of the state on the financial situation of the district. So Matt, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so I'm trying to do something new here, and I'm trying to give out more information about what's going on and put it in narrative form. So this is the, and I've shared my screen. So for the general viewing public, can you see it, by the way?
Yes.
I can, yes.
Okay, so I just want to, first off, I want to let everyone know that we've been selected by the U.S. Department of Education to have our grants reviewed. In the past, I've said that because we've we participated in so much grant funding that we would be selected. I'm positive about that. So that review I'm expecting will start sometime in February, and it will be great.
So Matt,
yes,
just if I could break in, is that for all intents and purposes an audit to make sure that you follow the proper protocols and file the proper paperwork and things of that nature?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's going to be done by people who are very, very knowledgeable in federal grant funding. And it's an outside organization that is being paid by the U.S. Department of Education to review any grants that they select.
Okay,
So they literally could select Title I, special education, the smaller grants, but I have a feeling they're going to focus in on the COVID grants because
that would be my thinking. That's where the money is.
yeah, they're gonna want to make sure that the money was spent well. And some of the things that they're going to be looking at is to make sure that we're not supplanting, which is like replacing replacing local money with federal money. So we'll be focusing our attention on that. Okay.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
This is now just remember on my outlook for the remainder of the year. This is just my perspective, which may be different than the superintendent or the school board. So I'm seeing that the remainder of the outlook for the year is positive. I'm anticipating that in-person learning is going to continue for the remainder of the year. But that's also going to normalize a lot of our purchasing habits. For example, we're not going to be shutting down any of our buildings and have savings because we're going to be heating the building. Okay. So I just want to say that it's a positive note that we're keeping the buildings open, but it doesn't come with financial savings. Now, the next piece is the financial condition. Ooh, I didn't finish a piece of it. The financial condition as of, and this talks about the balance sheet, what I mean by financial condition. So as of the end of January, the district had just over $6.8 million in cash balances for operations, okay? And that operations also includes grant funding and school lunch. It does not include athletics and student activity funds. Now, we usually burn about $2.9 million a month. So at that cash balance, we have approximately 2.3 months worth of operations. Year-to-date revenue is $31,808,000, which represents 90% of our overall budgeted revenues. Notable revenues are local and state property taxes for Kingston for $14,987,000, and the same from Newton of $11,388,000.
Question.
Yep.
So Matt, is that the total for what we'll receive, or will we get additional payments from Newton and Kingston before the year end?
That's the total.
Okay, we've already collected all that's due us.
No, we haven't collected everything.
Oh.
Basically, it's our collections plus receivables equals this balance. So I'm reporting Kingston and Newton at 100% because it's pretty much guaranteed, and there's no sense in raising my arms because they pay timely, they pay all the time, and really I think it's just best to show that we're what we're going to receive for the whole fiscal year.
Okay, so thanks for the clarification.
Okay.
So this is what we typically would receive for the full year from each of these towns.
Correct.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's typical. I think this year is going to be down. Next year maybe up a little bit because the state aid is down. So I just want to make sure that you understand that this the 14 million and 11 million tie out to what the towns have billed the taxpayers for the school taxation.
And the rest of the 36 million is other revenues.
Correct. Right. So Fremont School District, so far we've only recorded two invoices that have come due because we got to bill them quarterly, and we've billed just over $2 million so far, and they paid in full. In other revenue, we've had a return of health insurance premium of $372,000, and I know I've reported on this in the past months. And basically what this is because in the springtime, employees basically didn't go to their doctor's office. So we had a huge return of premium, unused premium for health insurance. And then so far, we've only received half of our school building aid, which is normal. We'll receive the other half of the school building aid before the end of the fiscal year. So to date, we've received $256,757. And this goes towards paying debt service on the high school. Okay. I'm moving on to expenditures, and I didn't fill out this section, but I broke it out by school. So Beatty Elementary has spent $2.9 million, almost $3 million. And they have $3.5 million of encumbrances. Most of this is payroll that result in just 8.6% remaining available of their budget. Memorial has spent just over $2 million in expenditures. They have $2.4 million of encumbrances outstanding. Again, that's mostly related to payroll. And they have 11.45% remaining of their appropriations. The middle school spent $1.8 million. They've encumbered almost $2 million. Again, mostly payroll. And they've got 12.47% remaining. The high school has, obviously, it's the largest operation. They've spent $6.8 million, which also includes $2 million in debt service. And they have $5 million outstanding of encumbrances, resulting in $9.4 million remaining. The SAU has spent to date $836,000. We have $429,000 of encumbrances that result in an over expenditure of almost 9%. This is primarily due to custodial services at the SAU and legal costs. And then I'm going to be proposing a future budget transfer.
Hey, Matt,
Yes.
just if you could send to me when you can pull it, it'd be interesting to see for the 4 different campuses what the number of students are. So we're showing what the total expenditures are with encumbrances, and then divide that by the number of students to see what the comparative point is on the cost per student for each of the schools.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you actually see the comment?
Yep.
Yes, I
That's
can.
great. That's great.
Okay.
Good system.
Sorry. Oh, you like doing it this way?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, and I can also add in all the appropriation reports and the revenue reports and link it in here and put in all the trust funds.
Super.
So district-wide cost is $2.7 million. There's we've got 1.5 million of encumbrances with 5.6 remaining. District-wide cost would be employees that cover the entire district. There's several special education employees that are that way. This also includes funding the seminary property and the middle school, the old middle school property. Okay.
So is this information the result of the new accounting system that you're implementing, or are you doing this manually, or how are you doing this?
Right now I'm doing this manually. This is the kind of information that I'm normally used to providing. And it's frankly, I've been able to get time to spend towards better reporting. Okay.
Thank you.
I just wish I could have gotten to some of this earlier. Okay, so some notable expenditures, and of course, I spent a half a day doing this. Okay, so as time goes on, I'm going to be able to add more larger notable items in here. But we spent $2.3 million in principal and interest debt service for the high school. This represents the entire expenditure for this current fiscal year. The next payment is going to be in August. For legal expenses, which is part of the SAU budget, we budgeted $30,000. However, we paid $66,000 to date, or through the end of January. I also want to point out some financial risks that are going to be coming up in the near future. The first one is that we lost a boiler. I'm anticipating state and federal grants for updating these types of systems. Also talking to the facilities committee about hiring an engineer, and they're also going to be entertaining proposals for a new boiler. And by the way, those proposals are hard to get right now. We've lost a circulator pump at the high school. Circulator pumps usually cost between $3,000 to $5,000 to replace. These are like pumps on a zone, okay? But these pumps they're huge, okay? And typically these pumps can be reconditioned. However, to take off a pump off the network, it will bring down a whole section of the building like 2 weeks while the pump is being rebuilt. So usually what happens is you have a spare pump in inventory and you swap it out, and then you take the old pump and send that off to be rebuilt. In this particular case, we don't have a spare pump. So we're going to buy a new pump and send the old one off to be rebuilt and stick that in storage.
And the pumps are the same throughout the system?
Yes. Or in that particular room, the pumps are the same. Okay. Also, there's been carbon buildup at the high school chimney. There's actually, since I wrote this, there's been a new revelation. And for the past 3 days, there have been 2 technicians tearing apart the boilers at the high school and emptying out all the carbon out of the boilers. And they're actually going to empty out the chimney. So even though I say here that we're going to need to cut a hole in the side of the chimney, I'm unsure that that's going to happen. I want to see what the result is of cleaning out the boilers, because literally they're taking all the boilers apart and they're going down into the chimney and they're cleaning that out.
I hope we're getting a new boiler company.
The next one is at Memorial School, the playground equipment is beginning to fail. What we've noticed is that the playground equipment's being used more at Memorial than at Bakey. And some of the pieces we're going to need to consider full replacement. We've actually had that particular unit repaired, but what I'm going to be doing is bringing that up at the next CIP for future consideration. Not for the next one that's going to be at the next facilities meeting, but one that's going to happen this spring for the next report. Also, our facility trucks are aging. One of our dump trucks can't hold anything any longer in its dump body due to rust. And what I want to do is consider replacing that dump body with a roll-off body. And instead of just having a single-use vehicle, we can actually have different types of bodies to pull onto the truck, like a stake body, a dump body, or a box truck. I've seen those at other places. It's actually amazing. So say, for example, you're trying to move a mower or a tractor, you can just take the stake body and put it on the ground, drive the tractor onto it, tie it down, and then pull it up onto the back of the truck.
So do we have an inventory of vehicles at this point?
We have 4 one-ton dump trucks.
And that,
2 of those trucks are dump bodies, 2 of them are stake beds.
I know we authorized the purchase of a new truck, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, that was a dump. So really what I'd like to try to do is get to the point where we have, instead of getting dualies, have one truck that is that has that roll-off bed on it, and then have 3 pickup trucks. One of the pickup trucks really needs to have a utility bed on the back, where there are tools in the back where a maintenance person can drive between the buildings. So we've been putting some considerable effort into the direction we want to move in for vehicles. It's just right now is not the time to do that. What I'm going to be proposing, hopefully later on this year, is to take the body off of the rusted out vehicle, and then swap that out when that vehicle ends up dying. So,
Hey, Matt,
go ahead.
can you get a picture of that that dump body for us? That would help us to clarify and understand better the condition of the vehicle.
Absolutely. Yep. But this is going to be something for the facilities committee, which you guys are.
That's fine to bring it there, but when you do, being on the committee, that would help me to be, to be able,
Oh, absolutely.
to see the rust body.
And quite honestly, with the CIP stuff that I should be reporting to the facilities committee, there should be pictures for everything. All right, so that's my report.
Okay. The next item we have is Auditor Communications.
Okay, the first one is an engagement letter. So basically, we're engaging with Vashon Cloquet to perform the audit of the financial statements of the school district for June 30th, 2020. Typically, in years past, the engagement letter has been signed by management, but however, the auditing standards are changing, and now and I'm trying to scroll down to the bottom. They're requiring that the engagement letter be signed by the chairman of the board. The purpose is they want to make sure that the board is aware that the auditors have been engaged to conduct an audit of the financial statements. Okay, I've actually seen frauds where the board was not aware of who their auditor was, and the person who was in control of the financial statements stole like $6 million from them. So it's really important to kind of for the auditors to communicate directly with the board. Okay, so this is addressed to the school board, not at tonight's school board meeting, but at the next school board meeting. I'm going to ask Jim to bring this up to the school board, get approval to go ahead, and then have them sign it. So basically what they're going to be auditing is the different components of the financial statements, which is the management discussion analysis, different financial pages of the financial statements, and also the schedules in the back of the financial statements. Okay.
What I'd like to add, and Jim, for, if you're going to be signing this, I'd like to add for them, because they never gave it to us last time, and we asked for it last time, to put it right in the document that we are expecting them to provide for us informations on opportunities for improvement. I've never seen audit documents where that gets not pointed out. That's one of the things you pay auditors for.
Didn't they come back with something additional last year that gave us some of those?
He sporadically, because I questioned him in the meeting, came up with things off the top of his head and said that they would include it in the reports next time, and then didn't.
Okay. All right.
When I was auditing, I made a point to say something.
Yeah, you figure they're in there. They just looked at the whole thing. God knows we don't do everything perfectly, so they ought to be able to see things that they could give us helping hints on. I mean, that's one of the reasons you hire auditors.
Right. So I actually wrote up a letter to try to address some of Jamie's concerns of things that I'm aware of, which we'll go over in a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the first required communication. Okay, the next required communication is
so that's basically that we're hiring them and the terms of what they're going to provide.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. The next one, and I spent years having to explain this particular one. So basically, there's an audit standard that actually has all these questions on here. And what we found through analyzing different fraud audits is that usually there's someone who is aware of the fraud, and they just were waiting for someone to ask the question. Okay, So the purpose of this document is asking the question, and they're asking the question directly of the school board chair, okay? And I want to get to the bottom and just show that, like, who
But the
signed.
letter that came with this, again, was addressed to the school board, right?
Yes, addressed to the school board. So Jim asked me to raise it to the finance committee, and then also we're going to raise it to the full school board. And this is absolutely appropriate to run this through committees and the school board and have, you know, just have it out in the public. Are you aware of any fraud? Yes or no? Do you have any knowledge? Do you have any suspicions? So I just want to make sure that everybody understands these are normal questions, and it's normal to have the school board discuss this either in non-public meeting or in the open meeting. Okay. I do want to make sure that the school board understands that if they have any concerns, they can raise those concerns with the district's attorney or with the district's auditor. Okay.
Yep.
That's all I have to say with those.
Okay.
Do you want me to
Yeah.
jump to the next?
Yeah, then the revolving trust funds, why don't we go right to that?
All right.
And then help my tired eyes by making it a little bit bigger. That's good.
Okay. So now we got statements as of December 31st.
Yep.
So the special education expendable trust fund is $241,168 with just $4 in interest.
Do you know of anything other than interest in January either, Matt?
No, really,
Top
there's
of your head.
nothing.
I'm not aware of anything, but I didn't know if something.
It's only going to be with the revolving fund.
Okay.
Okay. So the capital improvement and maintenance capital reserve fund is at $223,028 with almost $4 in interest. This is the fund that I'm going to probably ask the school board to pay for a new boiler if I can't find federal funding for the boiler at Bakey.
But
So
we're also getting costs for repairing it, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And we're also looking at engineers.
Yeah.
The next one is unanticipated educational expenses, capital reserve fund. The current balance is $150,196, and that has $2.61.
And that one's got a warrant article, I believe, on it for another 50,000 that'll be discussed at the deliberative this evening. Is that correct?
That's correct. And so doesn't the capital improvement and maintenance capital reserve fund.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was out of the revolving fund. I was going to ask it on the revolving fund.
No, the revolving fund is all set. So basically all the rentals go into this fund, and then it's the school board that has authority to spend out of it. Okay. So just so that you know too, Jamie, this is manual for me. And I did that reconciliation through the end of December. And so I've had to update it. There was one other rental that occurred that we received some revenue for. And I'll address that at some of the other items. So this is the year to date has changed. Okay. So at the end of December, and it's been amended, we received rental from SLC for $11,666. We spent out $1,750, which relate to licenses for the iPads over at Bakey. And then we started seeing invoices for the new accounting system. And in December, we paid out $683. I'm rounding up.
And that's for implementing the accounting system. The upgrade was essentially free. Is that correct?
The cost of the system itself was free. The cost of the implementation was not.
Right.
Okay. So the revolving fund at the end of December has an ending fund balance of $191,954.48. The report total of all these reserves here is $806,350.87.
Nice to see it going up instead of down.
Yep. With any luck with the warrant articles, we'll be able to add some to it from that also. And we still have the five and change, I don't know, 530, 540 that is held back for emergencies at the 5% level, I believe it was.
Okay.
Okay, good. Can we go right on to the budget reports, please?
Yeah. I got to move you guys to a different screen. Okay, so for health insurance, now this is through the end of January. We've expended $2.1 million. We have almost $2.2 million of encumbrances, with $656,000 remaining.
So question on that, Matt. Your encumbrances right now are your best estimations through the end of the fiscal year, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the 656 is remaining for changes of status, new hires that change coming in or what have you. It's
Yeah. So what's going to happen
things.
is that 656 is either going to go up or down, and it's going to be because see, we set the encumbrance at the beginning of the fiscal year, okay? And if someone changes a plan, say they have a child and they move from a two-person plan to a family plan, then you're going to see that number go down, okay? The other thing is if we have a budget adjustment, most likely I'm going to be pulling it from that line item right there, and you'd also see it go down.
Yeah, but just from sitting here, looking at our finances, this would tell me that as best we can see right now on our health insurance, we've covered everybody to their current levels, and that could change. And we're still sitting on 656 in that account, and the coverage is through the end of the fiscal year.
Yep, and that's why also for the budget that's being discussed tonight, we have tightened our estimation of that. So you should expect to see any amount remaining next fiscal year to be that much tighter.
Correct. Yep. That was one of the targeted areas. Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to confirm.
Okay. The next one here, and this is why I wanted to kind of change the format, because I don't like reporting the way that these reports have it, because you got to go all the way down to the end. And it doesn't really tell you how well the different locations are doing. So what this is saying is total district-wide, we spent just over 15.1 million. We have encumbrances of 12.7 million, and we have 2.4 million remaining in appropriations. And let's see, 2420380, and divide that by 3026. So it's 7.8% is remaining today. Okay.
Just for
go down. Okay.
For the help of those watching, that doesn't mean that we have February, March, April, May, and June to cover with 8% of the funds. It means that we think that we have those covered with the encumbrances. There's still 2.4 million to take care of other things outside of what I'd call day-to-day kind of things that will come up. So some of those will come up. We know they're going to come up, but the encumbrances that we know today take us through to June. It's not like we've only got 8% left to pay for 40% of the year. I just want that to be clear for anybody watching.
And I also want to be clear with you too, that this primarily is for payroll.
Yep.
We've been kind of stingy on the spending. So let's see. Oh, there was another financial item that happened too this week that didn't make it to my report. We just locked in another 30,000 gallons of heating oil.
Okay.
Yeah, 1.971. And that should take us through the remainder of the year. I'm actually hoping it will be short. Let's see. Back to the agenda. Revenues. I kind of went over revenues in my report.
Yep.
okay, this is through the end of January, $31,808,508 with $3.4 million remaining. You can see that we got $1 million that we need to collect from the state for adequate education. And then we also have 2 bills that are out that we haven't billed for yet for Fremont. They're roughly about $1 million a piece. They're just over $1 million a piece. Okay.
Do we still think we're getting that 40,000 for the tuition, individual tuition? Up on the first number that you see in the credit side.
This column right here for the budget was based upon the beginning of the fiscal year.
Right. So in the beginning, we thought that 5th line down, we're going to get 40,000. We're more than half the year. We've got none. I don't know that. Are people expecting to get some there?
Well, I'm hoping, but probably not. And
yeah, that's what I would think.
I asked, we're going to be updating for the February report to make sure that this agrees with all the tax rate setting forms. Okay. So we actually don't know what our budgeted revenues are until midway through the year. And so this is like the beginning of the year. Now that we have time to address it, we're going to address it for the February report. So these numbers here are going to change. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Your favorite.
It is my favorite.
Online software usage. So I built this spreadsheet right here to try to update information as I collect it. Unfortunately, I'm only receiving information for one product, and it's the reporting's getting better. So what I've learned from since the last meeting is that in these reports, we found out that 43 users were using the system, the free version of the system. So what I reported last meeting is like, it really wasn't used that much. Well, it's not capturing the data because people were logging in using some other login. They weren't using the district's login. So we have some internal work to do to make sure that our employees are logging in and using the system so we can capture the data.
Well,
But if we can get it free, we get it free on the other login.
Right. What are we giving up?
I really don't know I don't think the free version is as robust as the paid version. But what we're finding is that the high school is really good about using it and the other schools are not. And you can see over here, it's like, that's the high school. So
yeah, and this is the kind of information I want, because it may turn out that, okay, high school uses it, nobody else does, and we're paying for 4 seat licenses for 4 groupings, and it doesn't make sense to continue to do that, then you just get it for the high school. And that's the kind of data that I've been trying to find on these things. Matt, could you also, you've got a spreadsheet that has been added to and subtracted to, and you put things in there on a regular basis of all the different things that people were aware of to keep in this subscription spreadsheet. Could you send me that one, whatever the current version is?
it's in the Google Drive. It's not, yeah, I don't want to do it here.
No, just when, no, just send it to me. I mean, you don't have to do it here. I have a copy, but it's about 1.5 years old, and I want to make sure that I'm starting off with a fresh copy.
Yeah, so my problem is I started using that particular copy, and then I got into trouble one month, and we paid a fee based upon that copy, and you got to use the live data. So so basically what I will do is I'll share the link to it so you can actually see it. You can't modify it, and it's always the current live data.
That's fine.
Okay.
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If 43 people are using quote unquote the free version, I'd like to know what a comparison of what the principal benefits are between the free one and the one we're paying for, and whether it's really worth the difference.
Can I insert a comment? No? Okay.
Thanks.
And then the reconciliation, I guess, is next on the list.
So I can't wait to get off this accounting system. So I had to manually do this. And I tied it out to the accounting system, which I have a reconciliation down here in the bottom right-hand corner. So each month right here is SLC's rental. In the month of September down here, I said that the committee, scroll on, did not contain the revenue from the town of Kingston for its movie night. Okay. And then SLC for October, November, December, and then January. So actually, here's the January balance. Also, in December, it didn't contain the expenditure for the accounting software, which is the $682.50. Okay. I just honestly can't wait for the new system because I'm making mistakes because this stuff is manual. In January, I want to point out, this is going to be for the next report. We spent $32,748 for iPads at Bakey. We've also spent another $13,514 for the software, the financial system upgrade. And this is the implementation costs. And you'll see that out here, January has some significant expenditures. So at the end of January, the revolving fund fund balance is $159,792.
So that 30,998 is what is that?
So
What's that made up of?
Yeah, so a while back, we made a request to the school board to fund 100 iPads at Bakey because the iPads at Bakey couldn't support the modern software and they couldn't support the modern management. So basically, the management was the most important piece where we'd have to have a tech touch every single machine. With the new software, you can update every single machine with one shot, and quite frankly, it's more efficient this way. Also, we were having difficulties upgrading the old iPads, and they were way beyond end of life. Okay.
And the 12,831 is part of that 60+ thousand that was paid to implement the new.
Yeah, this is just the beginning of, and I think the total is about 75,000 for the
Okay, right. I remember. Yeah.
software.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, all of this is accessible in your Google Drive.
Yeah, I found it. I looked at it earlier.
Okay.
So we had no activity from July through December is what I'm seeing, right?
Other than
we-
rents.
Expenditures, we had revenues, but no expenditures.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, very good.
All right. I don't have an update on the student cash reconciliation.
That's like $4,000 plus change in that neighborhood, right?
Yeah, so part of the problem is that our student activity fund data is with the auditors right now. So it's not like we can answer some of the questions well. So I don't want to make it sound like we're ignoring it. It's just the difficulty in answering the questions. I'm actually mostly concerned about a $500 payment. And we're trying to work that one out very closely, okay?
Yep.
So in lieu of not being able to answer the student cash reconciliation, what I did is I tried to provide you with, well, you would ask for opportunities for improvements from report from auditors.
Yep.
So what I did is I created this document here, which is self-identified areas of improvement. And so if I were the auditor, I would be raising segregation of duties issues, where we have a couple of employees where their duties overlap, where they have the ability to receive cash and record cash in the general ledger. This is going to take some realigning of job duties, which is a little more monumental than it may seem. The next one here is improving the speed of purchasing and disbursements. So it's more of an efficiency problem. And so if you think about like how long it takes for the school district to actually make a payment, we lose 10 days just for mail float, okay? 10 days to receive the invoice, 10 days to pay the invoice, okay? So what we need to do is allow for electronic delivery of the invoice to the school district and reduce it by 5 days. And then next we need to go and issue a payment to the vendor by ACH, again, reducing 5 more days. So in total with number 1 and number 2, I can reduce the time to turn around a bill by 10 days. Let's see. Now,
How
number
does that benefit the district? I mean, that's time in the mail.
Yeah, so where it's going to benefit mostly for the district is the amount of time the district spends on a particular invoice. I think the last time I checked it, we were spending about $14 a check. That includes all the data entry time, the reconciliation time, the cost of the check, and the cost of mailing the check. It doesn't include any interest or penalties because of late payments due to 10 days of lost mail flow time.
I see, like on a credit card payment or something like that.
Yeah, it can
Yeah.
take between 7 and 14 days for the district to turn around invoices internally. Okay.
If this is all being done electronically, is there anybody that's kind of checking to make sure that the entries are correct? I mean, how does that flow?
So the process isn't going to be any different. So what's going to happen is the invoices are entered at the school level. They're reviewed by an employee here before they get posted. They're reviewed by another individual to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And then I have a final review. Then it goes to the school board. Okay. And then the school board reads all the manifest, asks questions. Once that process is complete and the school board signs off on it, then we upload a file to the bank to make the payment.
So there's at least 3 sets of eyes on it before a bill gets paid.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. Number 3, I'd like to try to implement some electronic ordering of supplies. So right now, if what a person does is they look up the information, say for example, they look it up on WB Mason, then they submit that information, they enter it into the accounting system, and then I approve it, all right? And then a PO is generated. Then they go back into WB Mason, they data enter it again. So now they've been at WB Mason 2 times, and they data entered it twice, okay? Now with a new accounting system, we should be able to upload the PO directly to WB Mason and have the items ordered automatically.
But there again, is there somebody checking to make sure that we're not ordering more than we need? Because it's set in on a periodic reorder, but if the supplies aren't used for some reason, is there going to be any correlation between the frequency of ordering and what we actually need?
Yes, and And so I actually periodically walk through the buildings to make sure that there's no surplus supplies kicking around. And if I do find them, we do address it.
Okay.
So
I mean, you're not talking about automatic POs issued every single month for stuff here. It's just automating the activity of generating a PO to the vendor and taking the time and cost out of that.
right. Because I'd rather,
If what Jim was thinking was correct, I'd have problems with that if we were saying just automatically issue these POs.
no,
We're
no,
not
no, no,
saying that, right?
Okay,
no, not saying that at all.
Okay.
good.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. And then just improving the overall purchasing model. So basically, the biggest one that I want to do is try to generate a cost model based upon NOAA's data and for heating degree days, and they come out with a forecast of what they think the following year is going to be. So as opposed to trying to cost out heating oil based upon prior usage, I'd like to try to cost it out with the best data that I can get out of NOAA.
What, is their track record pretty good? I mean, is it how,
You know, I would rather spend the time compiling this data, because then I can also show to the school board how efficient the boilers are running. Okay, right now, just by looking at historical information, you can't see whether those boilers are going south. So if I make a prediction about like how many degree days they are, and then I put in the actual data against it, and then I see how efficient the boiler was operating based upon the degree days against the estimation, then I can say, hey, you know, maybe there's something I need to go look at in regards to the boiler. So if I was doing that for the high school, I probably would have been triggered sooner about all the soot that's in those boilers.
that makes sense to me, but as far as predicting how much usage, how much quantity of oil you're going to need based on NOAA's temperatures, you'd have to go back and look at several years, I would think, to see how close they were to the actuals, right?
Yeah, NOAA has historical records, I think, going back to the 50s.
Okay,
And also, I think they go and project out for 1 year. So it's just basically, it's tightening up our estimation for purchasing.
Yeah.
Those are projects that I have on my plate that I want to focus on this year. Okay.
yeah,
The next one is improve areas of public reporting and convey financial status and needs. Okay, so like that report that I gave you at the beginning of the meeting, that's an example. What I want to do is try to convey more and better data. Number one, I want to issue the financial reports directly from the accounting software. Right now, I'm doing a lot of manual data entry, and that's resulting in some accuracy issues. Okay, if I were to issue it directly from the accounting system, that eliminates any accuracy issues. Also, what I can do is, yeah, I talked about manual manipulation because of restrictions in the system. Oh, so when I'm pulling together all the budget committee data, the system can only generate 2 years at a time. I have to manually line up every single one of those lines. So I spend a full day lining up all the data for a 5-year report. That's not the best use of my time. All right, oversight. So beginning in October of 2020, we've actually been starting to put all the expenditure data and revenue data on the public website. And I'd like to expand it to include energy usage. Unfortunately, I have to create some processes to capture all this data. I'm also improve the facility needs, tracking facility needs. And what I want to do is try to identify better when a unit is failing, has failed, or is creating oh, wait a minute, sorry. Currently, we're identifying units when they're failing, have failed, or have created a hazardous condition, okay? What we need to do is track the items based upon the age, condition, maintenance status, and cost of repair and replacement. So we're not having to wait until the last minute to replace something, but we're trying to anticipate the age, the end of life expectancy on it. So I want to spend extra effort in the next, not this CIP, but the next CIP, and have a more robust facilities tracking. So those are self-identified areas of improvement that I've identified.
Yeah, I thank you for taking that up, but I still want to push these guys. You know, that they said they're going to do it, they didn't. We need to make sure that when we sign them up again, that they understand that is a deliverable, and that they need to do so.
Yep. Okay.
So let me ask you both, can you guys extend for 15 minutes to get through these last three? I can. Hopefully you guys can also.
We don't have anybody behind us?
No, I just validated with Daniel.
Okay, sure, I can.
All right.
Matt,
So,
is it possible for you?
oh, absolutely.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Somewhere. Anyways, so the final spreadsheet, spending spreadsheet right here, I don't want to say this is complete yet. The problem is trying to get this into a format that's understandable to the public. Jim has said in the past about, like, and this is an example. Here, wait a minute. He's saying like the 1,013,000 that was released of fund balance. He said in the past, like 400,000 of that is from the contingency fund. And while I agree with him, I have the number down here, but it's a net number, okay? And what I've got to try to do is figure out the best way to convey the data to people to be understandable. So I don't even want to say that this is a complete document. I just want to kind of give you a general idea of where I stand on this. So what I've got is it's kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, but it's in Google, and there's 4 different tabs to it. The first one that's important is the change in fund balance. Now this is for fiscal year 2020. And these are the individual components of fund balance. So if it's like a business, you would have treasury stock, common stock, reservations for lawsuits, and then retained earnings. So it's similar to that. So we have a reservation for non-expendable, which is for prepaid expenditures. And we started out at 132,000 and we ended the year at 100,000, okay? We have committed fund balance, which is the contingency fund, which is the 2.5% of net assessment that the school board votes on every single year. We started out at 400,000. We ended up with 569. Also, we had reserve for amounts voted. This is the amount that town meeting votes to transfer into the capital reserve fund. Back in March of 19, it was 100,000. March of 2020, it was 125. So, and then assigned is the reserve for encumbrances. So we began the year at 423,000 and we ended the year at 130, okay? So you have to understand.
When you say reserved for encumbrances, we explain that versus the 560,000 that we reserved?
So the 560,000, this number right here, can only be used for emergency expenditures, and it has to be like a real emergency. And we have hoops that we'd have to go through in order to spend those funds. Okay. Also, it can be used by the school board to reduce the tax rate. That's it. Now, for reserve for encumbrances, the budgetary laws allow the school district to carry over appropriations from one year to another for specific obligations. Okay, and what I did is I took a close look of what those obligations are at the end of the fiscal year, and I tried to close out as much as I could. And so I brought the balance You can see that we started the year out of 423,000 that was carried over from 19 into 20. I brought that down to 130,000 that's being carried from 20 into fiscal year 21.
This is a column I'm not familiar with.
This
Well-
is Jim. Let me try it differently. This is
Yeah,
at the end of the year, part of our spending, when you try to determine what available funds are to either put into contingency or return back, takes into account the amount of encumbrances that are still outstanding, but they're
so
not
that would,
actually
that amount,
expended.
right, so that amount added to the 569 would give you the unencumbered funds balance?
Kind of. I'll explain that in a second.
Okay,
But no, because some of that went back to the taxpayers. It's really, you put aside the 569 that didn't go back to the taxpayers. That 130 is, these are encumbrances that couldn't go back because they were encumbered last year, but they're not going to be spent till next year, but I'm encumbered with it, so it can't go back. And when
so it's
Matt,
encumbered because you know you're spending it, but the bill hasn't gone.
correct,
hasn't gone and you haven't paid it.
you've already issued the POs. It's encumbered.
Right,
What Matt is showing is last year we brought forward $430,000 of spending was encumbered at the end of the year where we're still waiting for bills. This year, 130,000 was encumbered at the end of the year where we're still waiting for bills.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
So it's encumbrances from this column that are carried into the next year.
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep,
So, so these are all the different components. And I want to show that unassigned fund balance. This is the balance at the beginning of the year. And then we had revenue and expenditures close into that column. And then unassigned fund balance also feeds all the different categories within fund balance. So like, for example, the contingency fund, 400,000 comes out of contingency fund, goes into unassigned. And then when you vote it out to, when you vote at school board to reserve it, then it comes out of here and goes here. I'm just showing the net number. So everything in fund balance goes through unassigned. Okay. At the end of the year, we had $2.3 million that was returned back to the taxpayers. Okay.
Yeah, that makes, go ahead.
So total fund balance was $3.2 million. 2.3 was returned to taxpayers. 130,000 was reserved for encumbrances. 125,000 was going to get sent to capital reserve funds. 569,000 is for the contingency fund, okay, and then $100,000 for prepaid expenditures. Okay.
Way to look at it.
Yeah, you kind of have to let it sink in. But for
Yep.
me, you asked me to do.
but when you're working from that 2.3 million, that accounting that you showed before is pretty right on.
Well, yeah, this is based upon the accounting I
Yeah.
provided before. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so I think Jamie asked me a couple months ago, which spawned this agenda item, is to produce the same information, but based on the budgetary basis of accounting. Now, I just wanted to show this first because this is how I think, okay? And I need to kind of get it down on paper first this way, and then I can convert it to, this is the change in the fund balance or in the unassigned fund balance on the budgetary basis of accounting, and that this is not complete. To change my way of thinking, just to let you know, I've already got a full day of work just to get here, okay? So we started out at $1 million. You should remember this from June 30 of 2019. That was released to the taxpayers. Then we had revenues over budget of $535,667. And I'll go into that in a minute, okay? Then we had turn back of appropriations. So this is appropriations that were unspent of $2,131,000. So the combination of these two right here is $2,567,000. All right. Then out of this, we also had to fund the change in the non-expendable, well, the non-expendable, which relates to reserve for prepaid expenditures, that was reduced by 32,000. So that was available to reduce the tax rate. Then we used 169,000, and this is where I got to change it because Jim has a viewpoint that I think the community also shares, which is 400,000 of the prior year. Here, let me go back to this one. 400,000 of the prior year contingency fund essentially went back to the taxpayers, and then the school board then voted out 569,000 for the current year. Okay, and I've got to show that here, and
which
that's
was part of that 3,200,000 and whatever thousand.
Yeah, so this number here can't change. I just trying to refine how I'm reporting it so it's easier for you to consume the data. Okay. Then we also had to set aside 125,000 of fund balance of this right here, surplus revenues and turn back of appropriations. We're actually going to take that surplus and send it to the capital reserve funds for next year. Okay, and this is the amount that's going back to the taxpayers. Now, I want to.
So this is assuming that those warrants. Well, that's 125. The warrants are total 100, don't they?
No, you're behind a year.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, this is from the last March's vote.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So now from here, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to break out the revenues and the turn back of appropriation in more finite detail. Okay. So this 435,667, and I have a tab for that. And so basically, here's the budgeted revenues. Here are the actual revenues. Then we have a favorable and unfavorable column, okay, that ties out to the revenues in the budget versus actual, I'm sorry, in the prior report. So tuition, we received 225,886 more in Fremont School District tuition over budgeted revenues. We also received another 51,850 in preschool and other tuition that was not otherwise budgeted. Investments, we budgeted 25,000. We actually received $43,000. The other revenue, we budgeted 110,000, and this is primarily impact fees from member communities. We actually received 119,980 of impact fees. We also received 16,000 of return of health insurance premiums from the prior fiscal year, and $750 in donations. Adequacy grant didn't come in to what was expected, so there's a shortfall there of almost $22,000. The budget
are these adequacy aid grants strictly from the state, or is there federal too?
This is strictly from the state.
Okay.
And the budget equals the number that the state gives us. So the number that they initially came up with is lower than what they actually paid us by $22,000. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is the statewide property tax. So really this and this number up above here is what ends up on your tax bill. This is the local share. This is the state share. Okay. We received an additional special education funding of $3,912. Our school building aid came in exactly the way that the state's
And that
figured out.
again is state money?
Yeah, that's state money. And what this is they're participating in the debt service cost of the high school, and they have a bond principal payment scheduled out to 2041 for all their school districts in the state. Ours is ending in I think the summer of 2024. So we know what this revenue is until our final bond payment. We received kindergarten aid of $21,905. We also received more special education aid than budgeted. And this is because the New Hampshire DRA limits our budgeted number to 70% of the state's estimate. This is always going to be a surplus because I can't get them to increase the budgeted number. Vocational aid of 32,000. This is based upon transportation for vocational students. Since I can't really guarantee what the vocational population is, I don't budget it. And then Medicare, I didn't budget it last year. We received $2,493. I didn't create the budget for this that fiscal year, so there's an error in there of 21,660, and it operates as an interfund transfer, and we didn't transfer anything for that error. So it ends up being $435,000 surplus. Now, on the expenditure side, I haven't.
Before you leave, Matt, I got a question about the special ed aid. So they want you to budget at 70% of what you think your cost is going to be. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then they reimburse you according to some state formula?
No, I'm sorry. Let me back up. I budget the revenue based upon a formula that they give me, okay? So I would put in like 328,000 right here in what I'm anticipating for revenue, okay? They'll knock it down to 70% of that estimate.
I see.
Okay, and they reimburse us at a rate. They come up with this rate per pupil, and it's like, you know, you have to have a certain number of students in this program and a certain number of students in that program, and then they add that all up, and then they give you that number. So it's based upon what's kind of happened in the past rather than what's happening in the future.
So Matt, on the expenses, I know you haven't put those together yet,
Yeah.
but it would be good to have them in two different manners. And you started breaking that out in your business administrator summary tonight. One would be by the locations. So you have Bakey Memorial Middle School, High School, SAU. And one would be by major categories. So payroll, healthcare, energy, things of that nature. That would give a good view as to just two different slices of the spending.
Okay. Okay. This, by the way, to build this schedule is a day in itself. So
Now, with that, when you implement the new accounting software, this stuff will become much more efficient, I would think, to produce this, right?
I hope so. What the problem is calculating this spreadsheet, because it's a different way of thinking, because what you're doing is you're thinking about the change in a number rather than using the actual number itself. Okay, so just to show you like how complicated it is, let me just unhide it, because I have all these rows and columns to help me. You know, basically what I do is I go from the GAAP basis to budget basis, and I have all these different pluses and minuses to net it out. So basically there's your actual revenues, there are your budgeted revenues. I have to reclassify the use of fund balance out to come up with the amount. And then I also have to then prove out the budget basis to the revenues. So it's just, the accounting system can't do it that way because it's not based upon that basis of accounting.
Right.
But this is how taxpayers think. So
Right.
It's a worthwhile exercise. Okay. So I don't want to say that the final spending spreadsheet is complete. Okay.
Yep.
This reorganization cost spreadsheet, I don't even want to say this is complete either. I spent a full day on this. You can see I have a note to you, Jamie. Because again, this is like the accounting system. I can't do project accounting with the system because we don't have the module, and we're not gonna have the module with the new system either. So I gotta modify how we're doing the accounting in order to get this quickly. But basically what I did is I pulled out all the projected costs from the superintendent's April 3rd, 2019 presentation.
Yep.
And I put them in this column right here.
And you can see, Matt, at the budget committee's public meeting, people were trying to calculate in their heads, well, it's about this and where was it on that? And this would help put that to bed so people can see, oh, this is what we said, this is where we ended.
Yeah, but I just want everyone to understand that it's not easy. I actually have to pull out every single invoice. And you can see up here is the formula with every single invoice to come up with this construction cost. And then I have to go and double check it and reconcile it back to the system. Okay, so it's manual. Okay, anyways, what I did is I tried to group like projects. So I have one vendor who's doing all of this work right here. Here's the related costs associated with those services. And we were under budget by $164,000. This is the bathrooms, the locker rooms, the classrooms, the air conditioning, okay? And then if you break it out, we spent $10,000 for architectural services, $244,000 for construction services, $33,000 for other services, which relate to fire suppression, air conditioning, and air conditioning changes, or HVAC changes. The middle school vestibule, this is the front doors and the office. We projected $152,000. It actually came out to be $194,974. So we were over our estimate by $43,000. Moving fees, we estimated $42,831, and that's just for the moving the middle school. We actually moved the middle school and the two elementary schools. So I'm actually showing more cost than what was originally projected on the presentation. So, so really just to do the middle school move, it was $20,000 where we projected $42,000. We also bought boxes of $11,000, which also did the Bakey Memorial move and the middle school. So if I just throw in the Bakey Memorial move in here too, we're over by $9,181. Really what I should do is combine this the presentation for the middle school with the presentation for reallocating the elementary schools to get a better picture right here. It's frankly, I think the moving costs were less than what we anticipated. The intercom bell phone system, really what happened is we modified the intercom system, the bell system still remains. However, we replaced the phone system and we're over budget, although I haven't extended out the formula yet. We're over budget by $26,000. The wiring for the new computer labs is done by a contractor who's different than the one that did the STEM lab. The STEM lab is not in the original presentation. And then signage is like 3 different vendors and I gotta go find them. And then the corridor doors aren't complete yet. And so I gotta cost that out as to what the estimated costs are. So even though this is showing that we're under budget by $112,000, I'm really not done with this section down here yet. Okay.
Good thing we saved money on the locker rooms.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, that right there is the savings on the locker rooms.
This
Okay.
is a good sheet. This is very helpful.
Yeah. Good work, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't think you had any manifest questions. Oh, this is just vocabulary,
Yeah.
and then
Headphones, we reviewed that last time.
the monthly cost.
Detail reviewed. And I think the other one, Matt, was just one of them was, let's talk more about that in the facilities committee. It wasn't really a question. It was just a facilities kind of, let's talk about that item in the facilities meeting. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a note to ask you to put that on the facilities agenda, so,
Put what on the
Asking.
facilities agenda?
yeah.
What? Which
That
it was
item?
the cost associated with building out the STEM room.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So that's what I got.
very good.
Yeah, I'll go through my note. I had one sheet that I was still looking at to try to find out what final costs are, but I think they're just here on more sheets. So I'll take a look at that, and anything that I think I'm missing, Matt, I'll just drop you a separate note.
Okay. And then for future meetings, what I'm going to try to do is combine some of this stuff and put it into my business administrator's comments, so we can just bang it out and then start working on higher level projects.
Yeah, that's fine. So this ran a bit over. We're about an hour and 20 minutes now. But there's an awful lot to review, and the details are very helpful, Matt. So thank you for putting those together, and both of you for staying over.
Okay. All right.
Any questions?
Nope.
Matt, any other items from your perspective?
No.
Why don't we wrap up then? I'll adjourn the meeting.